Hello, welcome. My name is Gabriel, and I should have filmed this video like 2 months ago. Alright gang, I'm in the lawn chair, which I think is a clear indicator that I am struggling. So, first of all, to address the question on everyone's mind, I'm sure, why am I filming here, and not in front of my gorgeous new bookshelves which I assembled on camera? Well... what just happened? So, I was getting ready to film a new video, and I was looking at my shelves, and I looked at the window, and I thought, maybe my lighting might be better if I moved this just a couple feet to the left. So I got down on the ground, and I started pushing, and it didn't move, it didn't budge, that's fine, it's a very heavy shelf. But what I did hear, after a couple seconds of pushing, was a crack. And that's where I thought, oh no, oh god, no. And I stood back and I watched the whole thing collapse to the ground. So here we are. The video that I wanted to film this week, I am postponing because I really want my bookshelves behind me for that one. So instead, I thought to myself, what can I film? And I remembered I never did the mid-year book freakout tag, which is a ton of fun. I know it's not the middle of the year anymore, we're kind of in the final countdown, but it's my channel, I can do what I want. But since I threw this whole video together pretty fast, if my answers seem rushed or poorly thought out, it's because they are. So bear with me. The first question is, what is the best book you have read so far this year? And if you're familiar with my earlier videos, you might remember that I said that The Secret History by Donna Tartt is my new favorite book of all time. I finished it and immediately gave it that title. So you would expect that to be my answer. But what happened was I read that and then immediately read a bunch of books that I liked even more. I actually have two answers for this question, and neither of them are The Secret History. Those two books are The Odyssey, translated by Emily Wilson, as well as A Mercy by Toni Morrison. I'm sure you're all at least vaguely familiar with The Odyssey, so I don't need to explain the plot to you. Wilson's translation is definitive. She cuts through the fluff and gets right to the heart of the story, exposing all of the drama and the humor, while still maintaining all of the beauty and the poetry. I read this in January, and I have thought about it every single day since. And then A Mercy by Toni Morrison is set in early colonial Virginia in the 1680s, and it follows Florence, a young black girl on a mission to find the blacksmith and healer who can treat a smallpox outbreak on the plantation where she is enslaved. This book is among one of the most astonishing pieces of writing I have ever read. The story and the characters on their own are compelling enough, but the way that this book plays with atmosphere and structure and perspective are just stunning. The prose feels like it is living and breathing, and the story just builds and builds and builds until the very end, where it feels like the whole world just clicks into place. It really perfectly renders this single moment in history. Question number 2, what is the best sequel you have read so far this year? And I've only read one sequel. It is Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins. You know what it's about. I love the Hunger Games trilogy. I think it's brilliant. I will defend it to my grave. Next, a new release you haven't read yet but want to. For this, I chose Death in Her Hands by Ottessa Moshfegh. I don't know what this is about at all, and I actually haven't read any of Moshfegh's other books, but this cover is gorgeous, especially the hardback, and I just want it. And that's all for that. Next, we have my most anticipated release of 2020, and I'm cheating because I couldn't think of anything being released in the rest of this year, so instead I am choosing Ariadne by Jennifer Saint, which will not be released until April 2021. This book is about Ariadne, who in Greek mythology was the daughter of King Minos, who helped defeat the Minotaur. It seems to be in a similar vein as Madeline Miller's books, taking a side character from the myths and fleshing out their life story, and I'm very excited about it for that reason. Also, this cover is just stunning, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. Next, we have Biggest Disappointment. So, I have two answers again. Number 1 is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins, the long-awaited... was anyone awaiting it? The prequel to the Hunger Games trilogy. I had just reread the Hunger Games trilogy when this came out, so I was really pumped to get back into Suzanne Collins's writing, but honestly, I think deep down in my heart of hearts, I kind of knew it was going to be bad, so I can't really count this one. That is why my real answer for this question is The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt, because I went into this not only with like high hopes, but I expected it to be my new favorite book of all time, because when I read this, I had just labeled The Secret History my favorite of all time, but I didn't like the ending of that book. But I had seen the movie adaptation of The Goldfinch and I liked that. So I thought that this book would probably take that top spot. And it sure did not. I really disliked Theo's voice as a narrator. I thought that the voice Donna Tartt created for Theo really clashed with her own authorial style and it just never came together very clearly for me. I also struggled with the tone of this book. The vibes just clashed and it did not work for me. Next, we have biggest surprise. So, I haven't read that many things this year that like surprised me in a good way. At least nothing like super notable. But for this question, I chose Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. So, I tried reading this book back in 2017 when it was first released, and for one reason or another, I never finished it. So going back into it, I was expecting probably to dislike it just because if I didn't finish it before, why would I now? And I've also been on a pretty rough streak with YA contemporary books this year. I just don't think it's my genre anymore. So my expectations for this book were pretty abysmal. But I actually really liked this. I think that the way that the main character Aza's OCD manifested in the writing and her narration was so interesting. I also loved the relationship dynamic between her and her best friend Daisy, and it was just a lot of fun. It's not a new favorite or anything, but I expected to dislike it, and I liked it. Surprise. The next question is favorite new author. Now, you're probably expecting me to say Toni Morrison because she is my favorite author of all time. Now, I talk about her in every single video, but she's actually not new to me this year because I read Beloved back in November 2019. So instead, I have chosen Madeline Miller because she is the author who is brand new to me this year and has skyrocketed to my top tier favorite authors. I read both of her books, Circe and The Song of Achilles, in the same month, and both of them are just breathtaking. Her writing is clear and exciting and yet lyrical and gorgeous, and I cannot wait to see what she does next. I know in interviews she has been talking about adapting some Shakespeare, specifically The Tempest, and I can't wait for that, and I hope we don't have to wait too long for it. The next question is newest fictional crush, and do people really get fictional crushes? Next, we have new favorite character. Now, I don't think about characters that much outside of the context of their own books, so I'm just going to talk about the characters that I thought were the most interesting to read about, and those ones are Telemachus from the Odyssey. I just think he's neat. I also loved Mary Bolkonsky in War and Peace. She's crazy, I love her. Also, Willem in A Little Life. He's a good man, and he's easy to project onto. And then, of course, Ampersand from Axioms End by Lindsay Ellis, because I love aliens. Ellis did such a good job creating a really thoroughly non-human character who still has a really vibrant, clear personality. Every scene with him was a delight. Next question is a book that made you cry. And only one book has succeeded in making tears physically well up in my eyes and fall down my face, and that is, of course, say it with me, A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. I feel like that's everyone's answer this year because it's traumatic. But I'm also going to give an honorable mention to The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. I didn't cry, but I got really emotional and it took me by surprise, so brownie points. Next, a book that made you happy. I chose I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. This was a reread of an old favorite. It's about twins who are artists and a lot more. I talk about it in my July wrap-up. Check that out. This book is really an emotional roller coaster, but the best emotion I can describe for the overall feeling that it gave me is rapturous joy. The next question is my favorite book-to-movie adaptation that I watched this year. And I actually haven't been watching really any movies this year, but I have watched Hamilton on Disney+, which I know is a pro shot of a stage musical, not a movie, but Disney's marketing it as Hamilton the movie, so I'm gonna count it. I have read the Ron Chernow biography, which inspired Lin-Manuel Miranda to write this musical. I think it's great. My review of the musical as an adaptation of that book, I mean, there are some weird historical liberties taken to turn it into like a 2-act musical, but it's really its own thing and I can't judge it, and I don't need to be the one to tell you that it is a very good musical. That's my review of Hamilton, if you wanted it. The next question is, what is your favorite book review you have written this year? And on my channel, my favorite review is my review of Jazz by Toni Morrison, which I talked about at the end of my Reading Rush TBR video. I was very proud of the way that my thoughts on that book came together to form a pretty solid review. But my actual favorite book review I've written this year, I wrote back in January because for a college application, a school asked me to recommend them a book. And so I wrote a recommendation for Smoke Gets in Your Eyes by Caitlyn Doughty. And I'm going to read that for you now because I think it's a really good book review and it deserves to be seen by more people than some college admissions counselors. Caitlyn Doughty's Smoke Gets in Your Eyes is at once charming and disturbing. Doughty's behind-the-scenes look at the American funeral industry shows what we can learn about life from our interactions with the dead. As you follow her through crematories and hearses, she exposes deeply rooted problems with how our society responds to death, how our separation from death and the privatization of care from our departed loved ones has engendered a culture unaccepting of mortality. The memoir is deeply refreshing because of Doughty's unrestrained passion for the work she is doing, and her unabashed investment in an otherwise taboo profession. She relishes her work and finds joy in the darkest corners of her career. While the book could have easily been a grim or macabre dirge on death, Doughty sees mortality as a motivator to live the life you desire. There is a universal message that all beauty, passion, and creation comes from knowing that life is finite. But the idea that the fear of death is why we build cathedrals, have children, declare war, and watch cat videos online at 3 a.m. resonates with me as an artist. If art is a tool we use to understand one another, death is the time limit that makes those human connections so vital. Smoke Gets in Your Eyes encourages its readers to reclaim their deaths, to acknowledge mortality as beautiful and thrilling, and to live life unburdened from fearing its end. Thank you. The next question is, what is the most beautiful book you have bought this year? And I think my favorite covers of books that I got this year are A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, and Axioms End by Lindsay Ellis. I love all three of these covers so much. They are so iconic and just gorgeous. The final question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? And my answers to this are the Ennis Reese translation of the Iliad, which I have been slugging through for going on 2 months now, and Are Prisons Obsolete by Angela Y. Davis. I really want to educate myself on prison abolition, and this book seems to be the perfect place to start. It was also the July pick for the No Name Book Club, which is a book club, I believe being run on Twitter, which focuses on revolutionary abolitionist texts. So check them out for more books like this. And that is all the questions for the mid-year book freakout tag, which I am filming at the end of August. We're almost into the 9th month of the year. Thank you for sticking around for this one. Like and comment and subscribe and whatever. I'll see you guys next week. I'll keep you updated on the bookshelf situation, but this is probably going to be my set for a while. See you guys next time.